Welcome to Great Travel, where we peel back the glitter to reveal the truth beneath. Los Angeles, a city draped in palm trees and platinum dreams. Here, golden light pours across Sunset Boulevard, brushing past the velvet ropes of Beverly Hills cafes, where someone like Clint Eastwood might be sipping espresso. But just one street over, the dream collapses. A man with a master's degree sleeps curled beneath a tarp. A mother hushes her child beside a rusted shopping cart. Parks once filled with laughter now echo with silence. Sidewalks have become shelter. Cars are cribs. And the glow of Hollywood's marquee lights no longer promises hope. It just reflects hollow eyes and tired souls. How did we get here? How does the entertainment capital of the world become a place where 75,000 people fight to survive each night, invisible to the cameras? This isn't just a crisis. It's a reckoning. And maybe, just maybe, it's not just about Los Angeles. It's about us. About what we choose to see and what we choose to ignore. So today, let's walk through this city, not for the fame, but for the forgotten. A quick note, this video is based on information from trusted sources, aiming to provide perspective and insight. It does not represent any individual or organization. We encourage you to explore more and join in thoughtful, respectful conversations. If you're ready to uncover the real Los Angeles, comment 6 below, because this is a journey you won't forget. In Los Angeles, beauty and despair walk side by side. From Venice Beach to downtown, the distance is only a few miles. But if every homeless person stood shoulder to shoulder, the entire stretch would vanish beneath a line of human lives. That's over 75,000 people, according to the LA Times. Not just a statistic, but a winding procession of broken dreams, lining sidewalks, hiding beneath bridges, surviving beneath tents that bloom like mushrooms after the rain. They call it Skid Row, a place where the American dream doesn't just fade, it unravels. Concrete alleys drown in tarp and trash. Tent walls patched with tape barely hold against the night winds. And each corner holds a story of pain, of resilience, of someone who once had a job, a family, a future. But this isn't just about the homeless anymore. The collapse of one part of the city has begun to drag the rest with it. A slow erosion, quiet and relentless. What happens when parks become encampments? When emergency rooms become last resorts? When a child no longer plays outside, but learns to navigate a maze of tents and addiction? This isn't the backdrop of a dystopian movie. It's Los Angeles, today. And the question hanging in the air is no longer what happened to them, but could this happen to us? Because when a city forgets its own people, how long before it forgets itself? Beneath the asphalt of Los Angeles, the cracks have begun to spread, not from an earthquake, but from invisible roots, rising costs, broken systems, and the silence of a society quietly letting its people fall. It all starts with price. In Beverly Hills, a rental home can spike by $6,000 overnight. A typical house in LA now costs nearly $1 million, 2.5 times the national average. And even if all you want is a tiny apartment, be prepared to pay more than $2,500 a month. $1, $200 above the national norm. Wages haven't kept up, but food prices have soared far ahead. In the last 2 years alone, the cost of basic necessities has risen more than 30%. And one day, a symbol of absurdity appeared. A carton of eggs costing more than a large burger. In what used to be the capital of the American dream, a full meal has become a privilege. Very quickly, people who once had stable lives, jobs, homes, started slipping below the safety line. With no savings left to catch them, a minor illness, a single hospital bill is all it takes to push a family onto the street. Like falling off a cliff with no net to break the fall. The middle class, once the backbone of America, is now slowly being hollowed out. No longer pillars of society, they're becoming casualties. College graduates, longtime employees, are now living in their cars, washing up at gas stations, and searching for safe places to park each night. We used to believe the safety net would be there when everything else gave out. But in today's Los Angeles, that net is torn like an old spider web. More than 41 million Americans have lost food assistance through the SNAP program. The elderly, single mothers, veterans, they now wait in endless lines for help that may never come. One 70-year-old woman had to survive 6 freezing months in an old truck before she was finally approved for rental aid. And what about healthcare? Clinics are overwhelmed. Too few doctors, too few beds. Even when someone gets seen, there's only enough time to check blood pressure, not to hear the story of another cold night alone. Mental health centers only prioritize emergencies, but sleepless nights and whispered cries in the dark, those aren't considered emergencies. That's when the system begins to break. People who don't know how to use a computer can't apply for aid. One wrong click on a digital form can erase your access to food. A single administrative decision, small and invisible, can shut the last door to survival. And through all of this, the law lags behind. Housing policies are too outdated to match the pace of urban collapse. Old programs, patched and tired, can't keep up with the speed of this modern crisis. So the roots dig deep: soaring costs, stagnant wages, system failure, policy delay, and together they crack the surface. Until, like pavement under pressure, the street splits open, and people fall, each with their own story, but all into the same abyss. This is no longer just a crisis of the poor. This is the story of all of us. When the cracks in a city grow wide enough, it's not just the poor who fall through. In Los Angeles, even the most educated, those who once held diplomas, desks, and dreams, are now sleeping in parking lots, washing up in gas station sinks, and looking into side mirrors that reflect someone they barely recognize. Mona never thought she'd be here. A woman with a master's degree in mathematics and engineering, she once earned $25 an hour at an insurance company. Not a fortune, but enough to survive. She had a rhythm, a routine, a rented home near Ventura. And then, the Thomas fire came. In one night, the flames didn't just take her house. They took her job, her peace, her identity. She packed what little she had left into a borrowed SUV and began living in it full-time. First, she thought it would last a few days. Then it stretched to a week, a month, and longer. Now, she parks in quiet neighborhoods where she won't be noticed. Every night, she locks the doors and curls up in the back seat with her knees pressed to her chest. The hardest part? "I just want to wash my hair again," she whispered once. With warm water, with shampoo that smells like home. That simple wish hit harder than any statistic. Each morning, she opens the sun visor and catches her reflection in the vanity mirror. Tangled hair, skin marked by sleepless nights, and eyes that seem to float somewhere between numbness and disbelief. Across the city, Professor Daniel Merrill, an astronomy lecturer at UCLA, faces his own quiet unraveling. He earns $70,000 a year, a number that once promised security. But rent rose faster than his paycheck. A modest apartment became impossible, so he left. He now teaches online, couch hopping between friends' homes far from campus. The man who once mapped the stars now struggles to find a place to sleep under them. "I spent my life telling students to aim higher," he said. "Now I tell myself, just make it through next week." When men and women with advanced degrees, steady jobs, and professional titles are driven out of housing, not by failure, but by fires, inflation, and a system that no longer protects anyone, you begin to understand how fragile stability has become. Daniel hasn't shaved in days. His clothes hang a little looser. When he passes a storefront, he avoids looking into the glass. He knows what he'll see, not a failure, but a warning. Because when the most educated among us are sleeping in cars, what hope is left for the rest? This isn't about laziness or poor choices. This is about a society that has stretched its people until they snap. Mona's car is now her closet, her kitchen, her shelter. A folded blanket is her pillow. A plastic container holds the few toiletries she still has left. She hasn't had a real shower in over a month. But she still wears lipstick on some days, just to feel like myself again, she says. And Daniel? He still grades essays late at night, leaning against borrowed pillows, teaching constellations to kids who have no idea their professor is nearly homeless. There's a myth that homelessness only happens to the addicted, the unmotivated, the broken. But Mona was motivated. Daniel is brilliant. And yet here they are, invisible citizens in a city of lights. These stories aren't outliers anymore. They are becoming the new normal. And that's what should terrify us most. In a city unraveling, you'd hope that help would arrive like the cavalry, fast, effective, and reassuring. But in Los Angeles, it arrives in whispers, in half measures, intense with better branding. After decades of spiraling crisis, the city has finally begun to act, and it started with a bold idea: housing first. Unlike older models that demanded sobriety, employment, or proof of readiness, housing first flips the script. Give them a bed, the philosophy says, before you ask them to fix their lives. Shelter isn't a reward, it's the foundation. That's the thinking behind Inside Safe, LA's largest homelessness initiative to date. It aims to move people out of tents and into transitional housing, then eventually into something permanent. By early 2025, more than 3,700 people had entered the program. The cost? $367 million and counting. But money is not always the problem. It's how it moves, or how slowly it moves. While headlines celebrate the numbers, the reality on the street remains largely unchanged. Tents still crowd the sidewalks. The line between hope and disappointment remains razor thin. A veteran in Skid Row said it best. They gave me a hotel room for a week, then forgot I was there. Then there's the city's investment in tiny homes, shelters no larger than a garden shed, about 8 feet by 8 feet. They're modest, but they lock. They're insulated. They have electricity, a bed, and a door you can close behind you. For someone who's slept under bridges, a door is not just privacy, it's power. These small structures have begun to pop up in clusters, offering a quiet dignity that large shelters often can't provide. But supply is nowhere near demand. For every person moved indoors, there are 5 more waiting, hoping, watching, wondering if their name will ever be called. And meanwhile, the safety net that once held up the most vulnerable? It's fraying. After COVID and inflation, the number of applicants for food, housing, and medical assistance has exploded, but the budgets haven't. Clinics are overcrowded. The staff is exhausted. And people wait not for hours, but for months. A nearly 70-year-old grandmother lived in a freezing van for half a year before her housing aid was approved. She didn't just need a home. She needed warmth. She needed someone to care, sooner. Across Los Angeles, help is real, but it's slow. It's fragile. And for many, it's too late. Because the system wasn't built for this level of collapse. It was patched together for emergencies, not for the slow-motion disaster that homelessness in LA has become. Yet inside the brokenness, the intention remains. A belief that if we can just move faster, build smarter, and reach deeper, maybe this city can still keep its promise. The question is, how many more nights must pass before that promise reaches everyone? In the center of a city bursting with wealth and spectacle, there exists a place even the law avoids. It's called Skid Row, a name that once whispered caution, now shouts collapse. Just blocks from upscale restaurants and polished skyscrapers, the air here thickens with despair. Shopping carts rattle down alleyways, not with groceries, but with lifelines, blankets, tarps, and battered shoes. When night falls, Skid Row doesn't sleep, it trembles. The glow of city lights fades into shadows of addiction, screams, and the metallic glint of improvised weapons. Police, once symbols of order, stay away not out of fear, but futility. I can deal with gangs, a retired officer admitted. But here, there's nothing to negotiate. You can't reason with someone who hasn't slept or eaten in days. And while chaos reigns in the streets, another danger grows quietly, in the very efforts meant to solve the crisis. Los Angeles has poured hundreds of millions of dollars into homeless services. Yet tents still rise, aid still lags, and the same stories echo across neighborhoods. People ask, where's all that money going? Some whisper of nonprofits with vague missions, of funds that vanish into bureaucratic fog. Is homelessness becoming an industry? One resident asked. A cycle too profitable to break? That question cuts deep, because at the heart of this crisis is not just poverty, but broken trust. Even those trying to access aid find themselves locked out. Older residents, especially, struggle in silence. A missed click on an online form, a forgotten password, no smartphone, no help. One small error in a digital world, and food stamps, medical appointments, or housing assistance slip through their fingers. A 69-year-old woman waited 6 months living in a van, not because help didn't exist, but because she didn't know how to request it. These are the cracks beneath the cracks, the gaps no policy memo ever mentions. When technology becomes a barrier, when help becomes paperwork, and when promises become press releases, We don't just fail the homeless, we abandon them. And so the city staggers forward, money spent, headlines made, but beneath the surface, the core question lingers. Can a system built in boardrooms ever truly save lives collapsing on sidewalks? Not all hope is lost in Los Angeles. Because even in a city cracked by silence and scattered with tents, some people are still building, with both hands and heart. Start with something small. A tiny home, no bigger than a parking space. For walls, a roof, a door that locks. Inside, there's a bed, a light bulb that works. A night where rain doesn't soak your socks or freeze your bones. It may only measure 2.4 by 2.4 meters, but ask someone who spent years on the sidewalk, and they'll tell you, it feels like a mansion. Here, privacy isn't luxury. It's recovery, dignity, rediscovered. Under the Inside Safe initiative, Los Angeles has started moving people from tents into these tiny shelters. They're not a final answer, but they're a first step, a pause in the storm. And while headlines question funding, on the ground, real change is happening. Over 3,700 people have been placed in transitional housing. That's more than just numbers. It's thousands of nights without fear. Thousands of mornings with hot coffee instead of cold pavement. Even among those who wear badges, the effort hasn't disappeared. A retired officer once whispered, "I can't control Skid Row, but I still want to help." They may not have solutions, but they haven't stopped showing up. And in a city this fractured, showing up still matters. Because maybe hope isn't always loud. Maybe it lives in the quiet push of a nurse handing out socks at midnight, or a volunteer hammering plywood under the sun. And maybe, just maybe, the soul of this city hasn't disappeared. It's just moved into smaller homes, quieter corners, and slower acts of care. Yes, Los Angeles is trying. And in the darkness it helped create, a few lights are beginning to flicker back on. In Los Angeles, the American dream doesn't die with a bang. It fades quietly, tint by tint, from Sunset Boulevard to Skid Row. It unravels in the silence between paychecks, in the faces of children who sleep with growling stomachs, in the stare of a grandmother deciding between medicine or heat. But maybe this isn't just LA's crisis. Maybe it's a mirror. And what we see in it, what we choose to do with it, defines who we are as a society. Because no dream survives without action. No city heals without compassion. So today, we ask, what does your version of the American dream look like? And who gets to live it? If this story made you feel something, drop a comment, share it, subscribe. Help us bring these unseen lives into the light. The streets of LA aren't just cracked, they're calling. The only question now is, will we keep walking past, or finally stop and listen?